could get a keeper. You know, the last day of practice, I ran as far up the river as you can go, and probably caught 30 or 40 fish and never caught a keeper. So, and just in all honesty, my second and third day of practice, I never had a keeper bite. So, first day of the tournament, you know, I just went to work. It was the only place I had the confidence I could catch one. And I ran to the back of, I think Blakely Creek was the name of it. And ran back there, Mark Daniels was there. Just first thing, I ran all the way to the back and just started kind of fishing some of those logs. And really, it was just figuring it out as I went. I ended up catching some on a drop shot, just pitching around some of those logs and lay down deals. And had a limit by like 11 o'clock probably. That was, you know, 11 or 12 pounds, which for my practice I thought wasn't doing too bad. So I left out of there, and I kind of tapped into, I think, the deal that Brandon was on, because he was also in the area. And I had went past, and mud banks is a big deal for us back home as well. Just the ugly places, they don't stick out, and nobody fishes them. But I got on a buzzbait deal and pretty much culled everything that I had that first day with the buzzbait on out in the main part of the creek, on the main creek channel flat. So that actually had me more excited about the back of the creek deal with the logs. I thought the buzzbait was something that produced the bites to win that tournament if I just left it in my hand and covered enough water, which is, well, you know, perfect for my style of fishing. Put the trailer on 70, make 10 million casts at the end of the day, and, you know, hopefully get 5 good bites. But so the second day, I roll back there and start again. I get a pretty good start. I had a limit in the first hour. I caught a couple of really big ones early, and went out with the buzzbait later on in the afternoon and just culled one time, and really spent a lot of time doing that kind of stuff, and it never really did pan out very well. So the third day, I just tried to go back in again to the back of the creek around the logs, and by this time I'm figuring out things a little bit more on what was happening. But you could visibly see a log projected out of the water, and it would just be what I call like pole timber. It would just be like a telephone pole look. Well, Mark was fishing that stuff too, but everybody would fish the stuff that you could see. And what I figured out was you had two parts to a tree on some of that stuff. You'd either have the part where the branches are, or like the fluffy part we call it, or you'd have a root wad. And that would project long ways underneath the water. You may actually be 30 or 40 feet from where you could see the logs sticking out of the water. And what I would do is as I'm back there all day, I'm learning these, the right trees, and I'll get on my trolling motor. I'm watching my graph where the tree is to where I can find out where the root wad was or something like that, and I'd mark a waypoint. And that way I can keep coming back to these areas that, Mark and I are casting the exact same places, but that was my advantage over his deal, is I was knowing where those bass were sitting over where you could see. And we caught some off the stuff that you could see, but that was really the main thing. And the water also was falling every day, so it was exposing a lot of new wood for me as well, that I could, as I would be fishing an obvious place that you could see, I would see a dark spot over here, a log deal, and I would go over to and mark, and that way I could come back down and fish it as well. After I had a limit early yesterday, it was, decent. I tried to do a lot of different things, kind of make some adjustments. Seems like kind of changed each day on which logs would be the ones, but I had about 8 or 10 that were like, that were pretty prime time that I could catch good ones on. And so we just roll back and forth. And I caught, actually my last catch, it started pouring rain, and my last cast I caught my second biggest one. So I go in there today, expecting to catch them pretty good. Limit early, that's the way it'd been. The first hour was always to catch them, because I knew the right places where they were setting up. And every day, we had a lot of spectator traffic and a lot of camera boats and stuff, and a lot of meandering around through there. It would, when you get there first thing, none of that was happening. So those fish were fresh, they were set up right. You could catch them on the drop shot. And that didn't happen this morning. I made some adjustments to, I saw, there was one tree that I started on every morning that I always caught a keeper or two on. So I rolled straight to that tree and pitched the outside and all the way around it, and I never got a bite. And that I could feel the pressure on the third day really it affected that area, and they just weren't biting as well. And I looked over and I saw one big, thick, lay down part of a tree that's out in the middle, and I got a flipping stick out, and I hadn't used a flipping rod since I've been here. And the wood, just the grass. And I go over to it, and I put a beaver on, and I pitch right in the middle of that tree, and I think on my second pitch, I caught one of my good ones today. Kind of got me off to a little bit of a roll. And fished all the way to the back and coming back out. I caught the second, third one on a drop shot. And ended up finishing my limit out in the middle of the day with the drop shot. But the key for me this week is I made another deal with an adjustment with the wind. Started really blowing, changed directions, blowing into the creek, and hadn't been doing that any throughout the practice. And it really started dirtying the water up. And those fish got really shallow and got active. And I got a square bill homemade crankbait, a deal we make back home in East Tennessee. and just kind of went to work shallow, like my third cast. And I told my cameraman, I said, all week I've been wanting to catch a crank and a square bill on this wood, because that's a big thing for us. And I never could get it going. And today it finally started with that wind change. I put it in my hand. I caught one on a float that I hadn't caught one on in 5 years. It was really crazy. It was the right situation for it. It's a shallow running deal. And like my first little tree that sticks off the bank, I ended up catching a really good one on, and cold 2 or 3 more times. That was probably the major adjustment for me. It was, like I said, each day was something different. You had to kind of feel out for what you had to do to get the bite. The drop shot was the most consistent deal for me. Buzzbait was a big player the first day to have a big bag, and then the homemade today, another big deal for me.